Hello and welcome to episode 454 of the Filmmakers Podcast. Yes, that's right, I have lost my voice. I have the famous Cannes voice because I've just come back from the Marche de Film on the Croisette in the south of France. However, the podcast must go on and I must do the intro. Therefore, this is a podcast where we talk filmmaking from indie film to studio films and everything in between. How to get them made, how to make them, and how to try not to F it up, in our very, very humble opinion. I'm Giles Alderson, and some of you might be thinking, wow, he sounds way sexier than normal. Others of you are probably thinking he just sounds ridiculous. And I do, but I couldn't not put this episode out. I'm already a day late because I did arrive back from Cannes late last night, and I thought, okay, when am I going to do this? Is my voice going to get better in the morning? Not really. So on today's episode, I am absolutely thrilled to be joined by one of the most influential, I'd say, and respected producers and ridiculously nice guys of independent cinema today. It is the visionary Ken Kao. He is synonymous with, I'd say, bold, artistic, critically acclaimed filmmaking. He's the co-founder and president of Waypoint Entertainment, and he's been behind an incredible slate of diverse and thought-provoking films. Waypoint also champions upcomers, newcomers, storytellers. They've recently formed a strategic partnership with the acclaimed distributor Neon, so they're only going to get bigger. I'm going to come back to some of Ken's credits very shortly, but first of all, quick update on Cannes. The amount of people that had the Cannes voice, as they were saying, oh, you've got the Cannes voice. I mean, it's fine now, but you try this in a loud room. You try this in a normal room. But when there's music going on or there's partying, it's really difficult to be heard. But what I found is that people in Cannes love to talk. So it's fine. I could just sit back and sort of nod. And I loved it. Thank you so much for those people who came up and said they love the podcast and they get so much out of it. That means a lot. I know Dom Lamar had a lot of that too, and we really appreciate it. So thank you. Thank you for all the new people we met as well. Those people who were out there for the first time. Hello. You're our future stars of this filmmaking world. And it was so lovely that I feel like this film festival, Cannes Film Festival, was inundated with a lot of first timers to the festival. And that was lovely because we're all here to help each other. And it was very easy to help. And there's so many WhatsApp groups. And that was incredible. I felt that the festival this year was full of optimism. It felt strong. It felt alive and kicking and positive. I don't know. I just feel it's the best festival. I know me and Dom and probably Stephen Follers are going to do a special on this next week and a special guest. But I feel it's a festival where everyone is connected. Everyone's happy. Everyone wants to learn. People want to evolve. People want to educate others, on the do's and don'ts of it straight away. It's very collaborative. You just go with the flow. It's that kind of place where you just have to, find your feet. And old pros there, like giving advice like it's candy, and it's a joyous to see. Like I say, I met some amazing people, some really, really cool people, and I had a joy chatting to you. So thank you for those who gave me their time and had some wonderful, in-depth conversations. And I just met some really cool people. So if you were one of those, thank you. And I hope the Cannes Film Festival was a roaring success for you. But do remember to take it all with a pinch of salt. The amount of times I've come away from Cannes with 6 greenlit projects, only to find that, over 3 to 6 months later, they weren't actually greenlit. But this year was very positive, and I'll have some updates soon on anything that I felt I can tell you about. But I will be going out to Bulgaria very soon, hopefully prepping something. But I will be there on the film course. I'm going to be doing a bit of directing for the students over there, helping them. So if you haven't done that course or you want to learn even more, I would highly recommend it. It's called Film Forge and it is incredible. I shouted about it last week, but it's official. I will be going over there and doing a bit of teaching / directing with the students and really getting hands-on for them, experience with a camera and directing with me. So if you fancy that, link is in the show notes. Head on over. But yes, more news, positive, coming from that amazing studio where I made my debut movie of the Dare Drink. So now it's time for you to get out there and make your movies as well. Okay. So like I say, take it all with a pinch of salt, whatever you heard. It's about you getting to the next level. It's about you getting out there and making your film, and keep striving to do it. Because if you were in Cannes, you've done a huge step forward for that. And make sure you do those follow-up emails or calls or whatever it is you're doing. Just do it. Don't expect responses, but just do it and give them a nudge in a week. And then a month after that, if you've not heard anything, your future now is in your hands, and it could be a great time for you. And in some excellent news, the film I produced, Dirty Boy, has been accepted to the Raindance Film Festival. But not only that, it's just announced this morning that it has been nominated in 4 categories for Best UK Director, Cinematography, Best Performance, and Best UK Film. We're going to be having the world premiere of that then at Raindance on Sunday the 22nd at 6:45. If you want to come along, tickets are in the show notes. Huge congratulations to all the team who worked on Dirty Boy feature. It's going to be a great event. We have news upcoming soon. There'll be more cinema screenings across the country as well as the US, but it's not been announced yet, so don't tell anyone. But that'll be coming up. Very, very exciting news. As you can tell, my voice is on the edge. So, let's get to the episode. This is Ken Kao. He's produced over a dozen films. It's impressive filmography, which includes the Oscar-winning, lauded dark comedy The Favourite, which was nominated for 10 Academy Awards, including Best Actress, for its star Olivia Colman. He's also been instrumental in bringing so many other voices to the screen, and he's worked with cinematic titans like Martin Scorsese on the powerful drama Silence, Terrence Malick, which we talked to him about quite a lot on his contemplative films like Song to Song, Night of Cups, and he's produced the action comedy The Nice Guys, starring Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe, and The Glass Castle, which was adapted from the best-selling book by Jeannette Walls, and also starring Brie Larson and Woody Harrelson. And his work extends to the intense Western Hostile, starring Christian Bale, the suspenseful Tao, and the gritty police drama, and his debut as a producer, Rampart. His recent projects include the highly anticipated Project Hail Mary, again starring Ryan Gosling, and the horror film Cuckoo, which has just come out. It's also worth noting that Ken Kao co-founded Arcana with his frequent collaborator and acclaimed actor, filmmaker Ryan Gosling, which is a partnership which will be dedicated to developing so many unique material for film. He is a one-of-a-kind, and what a guy. He gives so much of his time on this episode. So join me, Giles Alderson, and Ken Kao as we delve into the intricate world of film producing. So sit back, relax. Hopefully my voice will be better for next week. For now though, this is the amazing producer, Ken Kao.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. You all right?
Good, yes. Thanks for taking the time and having an interest. I appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah, no, always got an interest in filmmakers getting out there and getting their stuff, done and appreciated, and working hard for the indie film scene as well,
I respect what y'all are trying to do as well, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. Good.
Could you remind me, where are you from, by the way, and remind me, make sure I correctly know how to pronounce your name. Can you tell me?
Yeah, of course. It's Giles. And I'm from the UK, and it's a very English name. On the last episode, someone else asked me, how do you pronounce your name? In French, it would be Gilles, but the Americans often say Giles because it's a G, but it's a silent G. It's like it's a J, really. It should be spelled Jiles.
Giles, yeah, despite my appearance, I have American flowing through me, so I want to make sure not to step on that poor pronunciation, Giles.
Appreciate that. But you born and bred in America?
Yeah, my parents are Taiwanese immigrants. They came here in the 70s, and I was born in the U.S. So I'm originally, I say I'm from Kansas City because I lived there I mean, I grew up all my formative years. We moved there when I was 6, and
Okay.
uh, so I lived there, went to school there, and I'm a Midwesterner, really. I don't know where you're located right now and how familiar you are with the States, but I'm a Midwesterner pretty much through and through because I lived in Chicago. So I didn't really leave the Midwest till I was almost 30.
Wow. Okay, so you were you a Kansas City Chiefs fan? Were you into the American football a little bit?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one of the best things I did for my own sanity, or quality of life is to not be obsessed, try to taper off my obsession with sports, and especially watching sports and hitching my emotions to the success or failures of a team. Don't get me wrong, I was very much like that growing up, and I was an athlete. I think probably right around the time I had my daughter, where your bandwidth, your family grows and then your bandwidth shrinks. You really, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to watch less sports, try to play more sports, and then just not get bugged by my teams that win or lose.
Yeah.
So,
It's a healthier attitude to have, especially when you have a family. You kind of you make your choice. What's my hobby? And if filmmaking is my hobby, because it kind of is most of the time, you can't then have the sport. I'm a big football fan with soccer in the UK, but the last couple of years,
yeah,
I've really got into American football, or as you just call it, football.
yeah,
And I've really enjoyed watching the Kansas City Chiefs. I watched
good.
Patrick Mahomes' documentary, and I went, "Oh, okay, they're my team now."
That's
So
so cool.
yeah, a lot of my friends who English actors, producers in LA would go, "Please don't support the Kansas City Chiefs." I'm like, "Sorry, I really like the documentary, and Patrick seems like a great guy." So
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
It's
have
good
to,
hometown, Kansas
yeah,
City kind of in the middle of nowhere.
mm,
It doesn't have like a lot of, in the old days there's a lot of history in Kansas City. Yeah. You
yeah,
know, there was like a lot of jazz, the grassroots of jazz came from there. During the Civil War, it was kind of a swing. I'm not kind of like, but it's right in the middle of the country, and they used the Underground Railroad to move people and escapees from the south to the north. There's as this country used to have so much Native American history there. Um, so there's a lot of heritage there. So I think everybody now, anytime I bring up Kansas City, it's always about the Chiefs, and that's good. I mean, it's something to be happy about, right? So I
mm.
think it's good for the town.
Yeah, that's so interesting. When you were younger, were you into the jazz scene at all? Then you mentioned that as a thing. Your way into being creative and filmmaking. Was it through that jazz? Was that something you liked when you were young?
Well, not necessarily. I'm 48 now, so I grew up, I would say, in Kansas City in the 80s, and I was big into music, and I actually think Kansas City has a bit of an underrated music scene, but jazz, I think, I didn't have the maturity yet at the point to really enjoy jazz. Um, I think I found that a little later in life. But I think that's a great question because I think, um, as people who have, whatever you want to call people like that, artists, creators, people with an artistic leaning, where do you find those seeds, those kernels,
Mm,
especially if you're not growing up in the, like a quote unquote, like cultural, kind of
yeah,
like the,
a hub of
yeah, hub of,
activity of
yeah,
music and dance and
exactly.
acting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That could be, and but because you were a lawyer for a while, but and that was sort of, I quite liked your journey. Whereas it was like, oh, okay, because a lot of people, I myself, I came from the acting background. A lot of the filmmakers I know were always wanted to be filmmakers when they were young.
yeah.
Was there something before you became a lawyer that you went, oh, the filmmaking's great? Did you dabble at all, or was it only after that you were a lawyer that you went, do you know what? I need to be creative. I need an outlet.
Well, let's say, well, yeah, I mean, nobody's ever really posed the question to me like that. I mean, it's a really interesting to think about. I think, being a lawyer and having gone through the rigor of that training and that being in that sphere for so long, and it was almost a decade when you consider law school and then the time I worked as an attorney.
Mm.
I think um it made me I leaned so far in that hemisphere of my brain that I think that it made me want to come back to what would you call it, the left side of my brain that I had been
Yes.
neglecting for so long. And I think now where I land in the work I do in my space, so-called space in the film industry, is I think I like to think of it as trying to find a balance between those two hemispheres. And I think that for now, at least, I feel like that's where I really excel. But to answer your question, growing up, I was actually quite more in the artistic space. I mean,
Right.
my mother was a pianist. She was a music educator in Taiwan, and I growing up, I played multiple instruments. And actually, I mean, I think to the point of kind of being able to own both those sides of your brain. I think in high school, I was both like first chair in the symphony at my school as a
Oh.
violinist, and also on varsity football team, American football team. So and then I was also president of the art club. So it was I actually was kind of navigating all those worlds.
Mm.
um, but I think it wasn't until, okay, you go to college, then you go to law school, you got to grow up, and like, you know, um, your passions or your interests need to be translated to some kind of role or job, right? And I think once I got to that stage in life, I think that's when I felt the need to really take on a more kind of adult responsibility. And I fancied being a lawyer, and in this case, in my case, my goal was to work in the sports industry and be a sports attorney and agent, and
Hmm.
and that's where I landed. But to answer your question specifically, I think what happened was being so far into the kind of that side of business, it made me want to go back to go back to my roots a little bit more, where I'm more inclined.
Yeah, that's fascinating you say that, the left side of your brain, and the fact that it was something I was going to say when you mentioned jazz. I thought, I wonder if you played an instrument when he was younger. And the fact that you played so many, and you're chairing, a violinist, and real eclectic mix when you were younger as well, which I think is really interesting. I was similar actually, but I was definitely not in the lawyer camp, but I was very much in the left side of my brain. But it was
Yeah,
football. Football was the other thing I did. I played so much. It was, that's all I wanted to do is be a footballer. But
yeah,
then the left side brain was like, yeah, but you can be creative too. You can do both.
yeah.
And I think that's interesting when we're younger, and it's really hard to find a path because we don't know what we want to do. We kind of sort of do, but we go, is this really a career? Can I do this?
hmm
It's really fascinating.
I love that analysis because
Mm.
I have a 7-year-old daughter now, and it can change your life if you let it. And I think one of the things that I'm starting to see is, well, I have been seeing for over 7 years now, is like I get to kind of, I don't get to relive my life over, but I have an opportunity to, I think, kind of, um, help shape my daughter's life in a way that I never had. My box was very different.
Yeah.
And I think, one day, we were sitting there, and she loves art. I mean, drawing, like she's always drawing, she's always creating mixed media. And one day I think it was a year or so ago, she's just asked out of the blue, my wife and I were sitting at the table, and she says, "Dad, Mom, when I grow up, can I be an artist?" And I literally was like, I mean, I almost cried,
Yeah.
because I was sitting here thinking, first of all, absolutely you can be an artist.
Hmm.
You can. But then the part of me that I didn't articulate, but I also started thinking, was the fact that she has to ask that or question it already at age 6 or whatever age she was. It makes me really question about how we program people as a society.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it was just so enlightening, that perspective.
Yeah, it is. And kids can be such a window to your own soul. Sort of, yeah, I've got two stepkids, so they're grown up now. But the fact was, when they were younger, suddenly it opened my eyes again to go, oh, I remember doing this. I remember this. Let me not, if they liked something, it was like, yes, go explore that. See if that's something you want to do. And I think and it made me open my eyes to things again and sort of go, yeah, I did used to love that. This was interesting. Oh, I'm all right at maths. I always thought it was rubbish. Suddenly you go back to you go, oh, I know it's only kid stuff in a sense, but you suddenly go, oh, okay, I quite enjoyed that, or geography or history. You suddenly go lessons if you had a bad teacher, and kids can really be an opener to that, or even on a film set and you're working with kids or working with someone who's different. It suddenly open your mind to things that you might have closed off or not thought about. And that's really interesting, especially I think from your side as well, coming from the lawyer side of things. It's not that often a lawyer then becomes a big producer. And I think that is really great. And something you mentioned really at the beginning as well, by having this knowledge probably really helped you as a filmmaker. Was there a specific moment when you decided, okay, I'm going to change, because to become a filmmaker from being a lawyer and getting paid and having a nice job to jumping in sometimes 2 feet into a film world where you don't know what's going to happen next. Talk us through that choice. Was it easy? Was it difficult? Where were you at the time to make you want to do that?
Do you mean the moment or that time when I was changing industries?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, it was very difficult. I think even for those that came up within that ecosystem of filmmaking, yeah, man, it's a well-known story. I think only a small percentage of people make it, and everybody's looking for their break. And I think so. I mean, for a guy that's 30 years old that has literally no film world experience to
Yeah.
say, hey, I want to get into this industry without a specific lane that you're trying to get into, or you're particularly credentialed in. It was the easiest thing. I think I was really throwing out a lot of different lines and hoping that there was a bite. Eventually, I think at the time, WME finally took an opportunity and represented me as a producer financier, and that was kind of my entry point into the real meaningful entry point into this business.
Totally. And the fact that you say an entry point, there's so many people in the indie filmmaking world now going, you got into WME and they repped you. They're kind of like, can you unpack that? Can you unpack that? Why aren't you do this? So I'm going to do due diligence and go, cool. How did you get to WME in the first place? Were you already, because I from what I gather, your lawyering, as it were, being an attorney, wasn't in media. You said it was in sports. So how did you pivot? How suddenly a WME going, okay, we'll take a chance and rep you? Because that's a great opportunity.
Well, it wasn't because of my acting skills. Well, it's funny that the setup for our conversation today has also spoken. I mean, mentioned my legal background and also sports, because ultimately, when I reminisce on how this came to be, I was actually it was through this relationship that I had, which is I was lawyering, and it was for a particular sports deal, and it was an actor. It was Edward Norton, who had run the New York Marathon, and I was involved in, at the time he was at WME, and I helped put together a work on this New York Marathon deal, and the agent that was representing Edward at the time in New York eventually put me in touch with one of his colleagues in LA WME, and that is the genesis of my introduction into that relationship. So yeah, there you go.
That's great. And do you know what? It is about who you know. This industry is about, and people could say, oh, well, you got lucky, but do you know what? You create your own luck. And if it's something you want to do, it kind of finds you, and it sounds like Edward Norton and that whole, it was supposed to happen. He was supposed to find you. You were supposed to have those conversations that made him go, oh, do you know what? I'll put in a call for you, and suddenly it's like, oh, that opens it up. Now, interestingly, your first movie, credited movie anyway, that I could find is Rampart, which stars Woody Harrelson and John Bernthal. What a great start. How was that? Because getting your first film made for any independent filmmaker is really tough, but also what a beginning. This isn't, we're going to go make this for 50 pence and a packet of crisps down the back at, my mate's garage. This is a huge movie for Millennium Entertainment, who I've worked with as well. They did my first movie, interestingly. But I just fascinated by that, what it felt like for you. Did you have a great team around you at the point? Did you feel out of your depth? Did you feel like you took it to a duck to water? How was that?
Well, that was my film school. And when talk about, use whatever, word or phrasing one would like, that it was meant to be, or everything happens for a reason, or it's kismet, or, what I really couldn't think of regardless of how the film performed or how many people ended up seeing it or whether it worked, whatever you want to say, one would want to say to qualify that film. That film experience was really my film school. And I think, the universe really brought all the players that were, when I reflect on that, and that was 15 years ago, 15 years, almost 15 movies ago, I think about, how that movie was composed and where everybody was at their stage of their lives and careers. I think it all was a meaningful milestone for all of us, because I think in that situation, I worked with a director and an acting team, Woody and Ben, that had just come off a very successful movie called The Messenger. And, I think, Oren was at a place as a director where he was very open, but also almost necessitated a hands-on experience. Not that, like, a fresh rookie had much to give per se as a producer, but because of our relationship, I was afforded the opportunity to be in post with him throughout. I learned so much about the editing process on a daily basis. I mean, I moved to New York during that post process, so I was able to work with him and Jay Rabinowitz, and I was on set every day for pre-production and production. And
wow. So you quit your job at this point? Did you fully?
Well, I wasn't working in any other field at that point. I was trying to become a movie maker, so to speak, was my full-time goal and an obsession. I was at UCLA producing school at nights leading up to that. And at some point, on the job producing, I was in pre-production during that last semester. It was lapping all the stuff I was learning in theory at school. So I kind of finished that, that little program for posterity's sake. But, I was, hands-on producing Rampart in my daytime. And so, I mean, it was just, it was a great group of people. I think we were, I built my brotherhood with Woody on that movie. I mean, we've made 3 movies now since, including the movie that's first the directorial debut.
Yeah.
So there's so much, as you mentioned, John Bernthal, just good people on that movie, all the way down to like crew, heads of departments. There's relationships I still have from that, we've together again. But I think to say that, why, right? It wasn't just because I proved myself as somebody who could get a movie made, but I think what taught me so much about that first film taught me so much about was that this industry is so relational. And I think if you build good relationships, you can have an opportunity to continue to make films with the people you care about that understand you and you have a shorthand with, and that's what happens. And I'm, again, 15 years later, I'm very grateful that's the, that's my situation.
That's amazing. That is really good. And you're absolutely right. It is about relationships. This business is. And it's, if you'd been a dick, if you'd been, people were like, oh, it's just one of these ones who, might have got, found some finance somewhere, is making a film, but really they're just horrible. They're in it for the wrong reason. You get found out very quickly, or people just don't want to work with you, but, and over time, word gets around very quickly in this industry, and if people are nice, oh no, you want to work with them, they're great. It changes everything.
Well, Giles, we also know that in this industry, unfortunately, you could be a dick and continue to make movies, but
that's true too. But does that mean people
wonder why you would choose that that on you? Yeah. We definitely can do the others.
I think people think that's the way they should do it sometimes, but people don't want to work with those people, and they get called out. And there'll always be people who will, but there's not. I don't know. I feel this industry is hard enough as it is to, you don't want to work with people who are dicks. It's just too much. It's too much. Were you also involved in the financial raise then of Rampart?
Oh yeah, sure. I think that's largely how I entered this industry, and partially because I didn't have some kind of very specific film training, right? I wasn't a cinematographer. I wasn't, an actor, hair and makeup. I think, coming into the industry, I think one of my calling cards, for better or for worse, was that I could raise money to make a movie. And we still can do that. And so I think that's in our quiver of capabilities at Waypoint. And I think having used that as the doorway, I think and this isn't just me now, it's my team at large at Waypoint. I think, we've now broadened into, I think I've always aspired to be kind of a full service production company. And that's what we constantly strive to be.
It is incredible that, finance is one of the most important things in filmmaking. There's lots of stories out there, but people who can raise money, who can go out there and get finance for a film, it's just one of the most important things. So you had a great way in. Then I can't not talk about this before we get to Waypoint a little bit as well, is Terrence Malick, and being your second film. I have to ask how this happened, because it's such an amazing, it's not just one film as well you've made with him. It's talking about how that came about, how you managed to do that, how it happened, because it's really, really important for our filmmakers out there to go, hang on, yeah, my next film was with Terrence Malick.
Oh, where do I start? I mean, Giles, hit the stop button on me if I carry on too much.
No, but, please. This is
I mean, just like, again, reflecting, just like I thought the first film was meant to be exactly what it was. I think I felt the same way about my second and third films, which were both Terry. It was Night of Cups and Song of Song. Song actually.
Song. They were both pretty close.
Van Zandt, Gus Van Zandt, McConaughey, which was actually the fourth film I was involved with. But the two Terry Malick movies we did back to back, and that was a thing. To talk about continuing on the evolution of film school. We pre-prepped, and then shot them back to back, and it was largely the same team. I grew up watching films. I mean, it's why I got into the film business, because I was watching films. I was a VHS kid, and I was watching films
me too.
that I probably was way too young to be watching. I watched Badlands and Day Clip Heaven when I was, I think, 13. And I say this. I actually spoke. I caught up with Terry over the phone the other day, and I always say this to Terry, and he's obviously way too humble to say this about himself, or But I say no filmmaker has ever um, figured out a way to speak, um, to deliver films in as poetic as an experience as he has. And also, I think, in terms of visuals, I don't think any filmmaker's ever been able to create, like, they almost simulate life. Um, uh, not portray life, but almost take you through a life experience or living, and
Mm,
get you there as he has. And I think that's the essence, I think, of Terry's filmmaking, and that's who he is as a filmmaker. And you could probably imagine that somebody who makes things like that can't fake, he wouldn't be like anything but like that in real life.
yeah.
And I think what you want to answer your question specifically, what was it like? It was a dream. I mean, I in the industry never thinking that could I have an opportunity to work with one of my heroes of filmmaking growing up, and it came about because I think they had just come off that group had just come off the Tree of Life, of course, it
Of
was
course.
heavy accolades, and they were
Hmm.
looking to do something, I think, a little bit unprecedented, or a little bit kind of they somebody they needed a new partner for, because they wanted to try something new, and I think that's how we found each other, um yeah, I got to, continue my film school, and build more relationships along the way.
What was it like watching someone like that work and comparing it to all the other filmmakers you've worked with since and some other amazing filmmakers? Um, what would you say to directors out there? I know from the producing standpoint that worked, that was good, that was different. I know he's got his own style, and you kind of let him get on with it. But also at the same time, you're on set, so you've got a chance to watch and see what he does. What was the things that you took away from him as a filmmaker?
A lot. I feel like this could be a separate whole podcast, but and I don't want to be too what do you say, like, put forth too much of the secret sauce. But
Sure.
what I would say about um that world is that, um it's always being brave and bold about trying new things.
Hmm.
And I think, I think, yeah, I think, I'm reminded of a conversation I had with Terry once. Is that him and Chivo, his
Hmm.
longtime collaborator,
DP, yeah.
yeah, they used to say that their favorite days were every other Saturday. And every other Saturday was kind of the splinter unit shoot, where we'd shoot a sixth day,
Uh-huh.
and it was super stripped down, and um, there's like minimal, I think, crew. Of course, the footprint's so small,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of times that was the funnest day, and that was where they would discover uh, a lot more than they usually do when you're all crewed up. And I mean, of course, those are important days,
Of
but
course.
I think that says a lot about that sense of wonderment and exploration, and always trying to be nimble and finding, the pursuit of always trying to find something new and disruptive. And and I've always, you always feel that when you're making the movies, even if you're not really thinking that specifically. But I think that would be like one example of uh that I can articulate very specifically about kind of like what the world feels like. Yeah.
That's really interesting you say that, and especially talking about, looking or projects that are trying to break the mold or a little bit different, or dangerous. Is that something you look for, like within your films now when people come to you with the projects you made, and the projects, since then, it's, Lost in London is a perfect example of something that was outside the box and fascinating and interesting. The Favourite, Cuckoo is brilliant, the latest one, and all your projects you've got coming up, including Hamlet and Hail Mary and stuff. It just feel quite eclectic. Is that something that you've always strived for, and does that come from Terry's work in a way, or is it just something that you've said, I just go with the projects that take my fancy?
Well, I think as far as my work with Terry, I think it probably just continued to help in that evolution, right? I think we found each other because we already shared some of that ethos, right? And like we don't have a banner at our office that says, be dangerous or be, something like that. But I think it's a cultural thing, and I think I mean, we want to make things that are additive and subversive and in some ways push the genre. I'm asked all the time, like, is there a genre that you're interested in? I'm like, I'm interested in all genres. I love film. I personally believe there has been good films made in every genre and hopefully will continue to be. I'd love to make a rom-com. I'd love to make a straight action film, so to speak. But I'm not going to make one to chase business or emulate others. I think what I want to do is, look for voices and subversive approaches, perhaps, to really again push the filmmaking genre, and I think if that doesn't if that element doesn't feel like it's present, I think we typically pass on the movies. We don't need more movies. We need better movies.
Love that. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. There's plenty of movies out there.
Or I should say more good movies.
Yeah. Yeah. More clever, thoughtful, insightful movies that make people think. Absolutely. As much as we, like you say, make a rom-com, make an action, but maybe we make them that are a little bit more out of the box, and something a bit different, which is interesting. How much time have you got, by the way?
I'm good, Giles. I think as long as you're willing to share the mic with me, I've got time for you today.
I'm loving it, Ken. Thank you. Okay, so producing wise, then, the stuff that you've learned over your time, producing, and maybe some mistakes that you've made along the way that could really help our listeners, that you go, do you know what? Yes, I did that incorrectly, or that was correct. We love doing that. But something that would be really good to know, whether you took on a project you shouldn't have, or whether something happened on set that, maybe we come back to set, because producing on set it's beast in itself. So yes, anything there that springs to mind?
Well, I make mistakes all the time, man. Jeez. I guess maybe the trick as I get older and hopefully more evolved as a human being is, use those mistakes or missteps as an opportunity to learn, or really maybe not even think of them as mistakes. I guess maybe think of them as, I mean, we go back. I sense this is maybe a theme of our conversation today, is maybe like, there's something kind of kismet or cosmic about everything that happens in our lives, our world. But I think, there's always challenges. Every film is a challenge. It's a miracle that any film makes it to screen, quite frankly.
I know.
I think one thing, if we want to kind of talk about a little bit about mistakes or whatever, is or one thing that I need to be reminded of, or I need to make sure is I'm very cognizant and mindful of each time, is I'll go back to this idea of how relational this business is. I think it's part of the beauty and the difficulty of this business or this craft, and why I think filmmaking is. I think it's at the apex of creating it. No offense. I mean, I love all art, but there are certainly some art mediums where one can go hole up and create something all by themselves. But to me, filmmaking incorporates so many and um, uh, different mediums. It takes so many people who are to deliver on their craft in order to an attempt to make something hopefully that's good. And what that requires, I think, is relationships. And I think ultimately, I think um, when I forget that it's about the people, that as I think the thrust or the energy to get us to where we need to be, that's when I think things get sticky. And then that goes all the way to even development, like, I mean, to get somebody interested in a film. And by the way, it's not even always, you know, can I get this actor interested in a film? It's, can I get this agent of this actor first to get it?
Yes, absolutely.
Agent or manager. I mean,
Wow,
that's all relational,
it is.
Yeah, I think,
I think that's so interesting that you still find it difficult, like with Oscar-winning movies behind you, and yet you still find it difficult sometimes for agents. No, I'm sure you don't find it that difficult, but it can be tricky sometimes to get an agent to read a project so that they can pass it to the actor. And it's interesting that everyone's still in the same boat. There's no difference what level you're at. It's it's just if the actor wants to look at it or the agent wants to look at it that week, and
that's an art form in and of itself. And
yeah,
I think that's one thing that the layperson doesn't know. And it comes, human relations it's a craft in itself, and getting people to do their jobs well is a craft, and everybody's different. And I love this. I mean, we set the table for not only, that, but also sports, and I think a little bit sports.
yeah.
In the sports podcast, but and I read this, and I'm, definitely over summarizing this, but I read this great quote or a little blurb about coaching at the highest level.
Mm.
I think most specifically it was referring to, and there's been many great coaches throughout time, but Phil Jackson. I don't know if you know Phil Jackson.
Of course, yeah,
But
basketball, yeah, big.
the Bulls teams, and
Yeah.
then even later the Lakers teams, and he was often known as the Zen master. And I think that's a great example because they talk about, a lot of people who don't know sports and haven't been on a field at a high level. And I think like I was blessed to actually, also play sports and, at a reasonably high level. And, this is what I'm about to say, I think is totally true. I think people think that like the head coach is the one with the clipboard and he knows all the plays and everything's about the X's and O's, which is not totally untrue. And I think a good head coach knows about all those things, right? But when you get to that highest level, and I think in case of like the Zen master, it's the assistants that are running all those granularities that are responsible for that day to day with all those things. The head coach, one of the head coach's major roles is to actually make sure, especially when you're talking about superstars with egos being paid, is to make sure the chemistry of the team is functioning well.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was a Zen master, I think, because he was so good at doing that. And I think it's just, why do I bring up that example? I think because, never forget that when you're performing at the highest level, whether it's film or sports, that it's human beings, and I think when you want to get the best out of people, and hopefully when that translates, in order to get that to translate to the best product on the field, on the screen, it all starts with people, and how to connect with people.
Yeah, you're so right. And even Phil Jackson in the documentary, which is amazing, by the way, even there he gets angry and frustrated, but then he calms down and he's brilliant with these egos who are huge, huge, huge. Michael Jordan, it's ridiculous, and all the players they had round. And you're so right to relate that to film because, even George Lucas documentary on Disney Plus at the moment, ILM's, the second season of it, He's brilliant at being the Zen master of passing information. Everyone kind of goes, oh, well, he's the head coach, if you like. He's the director. But actually what he was doing, he was allowing everyone else to do their job around him brilliantly well, like insanely well, by going, no, you're going to have to find a way. You're going to, and guiding them to being better than what they could have just gone, well, I can't. And he went, yeah, you can. Go try it. And he would. And it's so fascinating, to watch stuff like that as a director, as a producer, to go, yeah, that person at the top hasn't just got a bullhorn shouting, do it better, do it faster, do it. It's a team. The whole thing is a team. And without that team, it all falls apart. It's a film by everyone who's involved. It's not just one person. And that's what, it is so wonderful about filmmaking. It is collaborative. It is about relationships. It is about getting the best out of people when they're absolutely knackered. Working constantly for months on end, on this project, and it can get frustrating and it can get disheartening. But yeah, that's where you rise above, right? That's what makes good producers. It's what makes good directors and leaders of anything, is stepping up. What's been a really great moment where something like that has worked in your favor, or just even those moments as a producer where you've gone, oh, okay, that was interesting, whether it was finding a project and getting it out there and then seeing the release, or something else that really is, because producing is a very unsung job. It doesn't, people don't go around going, oh, the producer for that TV series or that. It very rarely happens. They have to be really well known for the name to be anywhere. But they're the ones who are doing all the groundwork and making stuff happen. Sorry, that was a long-winded question. I don't even know if the question is there anymore. But I'm trying to find the good moments, in terms of the producing.
Sure. Well, I think, the easy place to go sometimes when you talk about this is, what kind of financial successes you've had, and or certain people have won awards, and that's, I think, look, it's nice to have a greatly financial successful film. More importantly than anything, I think it allows me to keep the lights on and keep making these films, right? I think that's a passion of mine. I think I do think I'm blessed to be in an advantage position in that I don't necessarily have to make movies to make a living. I make them because I want to, and I want to, um, uh, you know, help creators, help contribute to the artistic medium. Um, um, I think, for me, I'm always, again, this is another thing that I think, and you're a filmmaker, you're in this industry, you already know, but I love when a film can, go into production, and the hope feels alive. And I think, to have a great crew with familiar faces, to have people enjoying what they're doing, it's the best, it's the best moment. It's even more gratifying sometimes than when your film finally hits the theaters.
Totally agree with that.
I love that process of, that feeling of like, oh, we got it to go, the movie to go, and then also to bring these people together,
Yes.
that is to me the most gratifying metric to date, of being a producer.
Yeah, that side of it where when your film gets released, there's this weird anticlimax. Maybe you have it too, but certainly when you build up everything, the film just comes out. Okay. Oh no, it's so weird, but you're right. The best part is, I feel, for me, it's first day on set. It's like everyone knows the film's happening now. Everyone's there with the kid and everyone's excited, and what could go right, what could go wrong, how amazing it could be. That's special. It's, and especially for a producer that you've made that happen, must feel incredible. What makes you say no to a project?
Well, I think, definitely if that box isn't checked, where we feel like this film or filmmaker doesn't have a voice or isn't trying to say something, or if it's not trying to see the genre in a different way.
Hmm.
Uh, we were involved in this film Longlegs last year.
Yeah, yeah.
I wasn't a producer on it, but it was a great a great new, I think, role for myself and Waypoint in that, we have this partnership with Neon, and now we go acquire films together, and then we release them, and we're involved in the P&A and release of them, and it's just another area of the film industry where I can learn about and have experience in and have a holistic view and relationship with, and when I watched Longlegs, I was like, because I grew up loving horror films. I mean, I've seen all those, all of them, like, the Freddys, the Jasons, the
Hmm.
Michael Myers.
Yep.
I love them. I saw them all. And, as I grew up and I became, I think, my taste changed as a filmmaker, and I like to think a bit more evolved. I think for me, the great horror films are, like The Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby. I think
Yes.
Alien is an incredible horror
Mm.
film. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is actually
It's
an art
incredible.
film, in
Yeah.
my opinion. So like those are the kind of films I think I would want to spend more time with as an adult. Uh, but anyway, my point is, I think I don't need to make a slasher film just to make a buck. What I wanted to do with this relationship and also this new production company we created, to make genre films,
Mm.
uh, or suspense genre films, is to try to bring, you know, like more subversive and, I think, kind of like sophisticated scares to people. And, when I saw Longlegs, I thought, I think it's Oz's best film to date. I think he showed a level of filmmaking that I hadn't seen before. And I actually thought, I saw it more as kind of in the vein of Seven or Silence of the Lambs. It
Mm.
really only gets a little supernatural towards the end. I don't know if you've seen it,
I
but then
have. Yeah.
most exciting was, I think it was Nick doing something he's never done before.
Yeah, not looking like Nick Cage, even though, yeah, you kind of went, "Oh, there's Nick Cage," but he was wonderful in it. It just made you sit up and watch. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
So
made
I
it
think,
fascinating.
yeah. So I think, it checked a lot of those boxes in that way. And
Mm.
so, using that kind of as an example, I think, well, I'm looking for that in anything versions of that in anything we do.
Yeah. Do you get approached quite a lot? Do you get a lot of people coming to you with projects? How many a
Yeah.
day?
Well, I mean, my team probably would know the average better, but, I mean, we do. And I think, I like to, say it's a blessing, because when you go from nobody wanting to take your calls to
Yeah.
people many people hoping that you'll take their calls, I think it's a nice place to be, I think, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I know Anil Karia a little bit, your director on Hamlet.
Oh,
He has been on the podcast as well. I'm excited for that project. How is it? We all right? We close?
oh yeah, I saw it, and it's finished, and I think, expect that there'll be some festival circuit this year,
Hmm.
and I think it's very good. Riz is awesome, of
Of
course.
course. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
an artist and a gentleman. Big fan of Riz as a human being. And again, subversive. I think, you ask yourself, why do we need another retelling of Hamlet? And I think in order to justify that, I think, you got to really reimagine it, and that's what's been done here. So I'm excited. I'm excited for people to see this.
Amazing, amazing. And finally, then, just about, let's say there's a producer out there listening now, who's trying to get their first film or second film made, and they're struggling. They're having a bit of a tough time. What would you say to them, or what would you say if that was you to yourself?
Huh. Well, I think the only thing I could say is trust your taste. Because I think all the best that I've done has always been when I've trusted my own taste, not to kind of follow other people's tastes or do what I think other people would want me to do. I think there's a lot of competition and a lot of people that are already doing that. I think at the end of the day, I think you're only going to be able to it may not feel like that in the beginning, but I think the only way you're really going to distinguish yourself is being you, and we're all one of one. So I would say, trust your taste, invest in the relationships you have, whether it's, maybe an actor, maybe you're a filmmaker, a filmmaker, or I mean, like even in my case, I'll circle back to what we talked about. Like, if only like obviously, if I would have never taken the time, to, and made at least a decent impression on the people I was working with, he would never introduce me to his colleague, right? So I think, always be mindful of the relational aspects of things and how you move through this world, and stay true and authentic to yourself and your taste.
That's brilliant advice. And what a treat this has been to chat to you. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Giles. I appreciate your interest and the opportunity to chat with you today. Thanks so much.
Of course. If you're lucky enough to go out there and rise up and do well, it is your duty to send the elevator back down. We will see you next Tuesday, as always. Ken Kao, thank you.
Thank you, Giles.
Take care, everyone. See you later. Bye-bye.